Hello and welcome to HBM's Crypto-Corner for Wednesday, December 7th, 2022. We have a couple things to talk about, so let's get started. Bigfoot and the skunk ape are America's most famous unknown apes, but what if there are even more kinds? And this is written by Nick Redfern. If you're into the phenomenon of cryptozoology, you'll know about the United States' most famous mysterious apes, Bigfoot and the skunk ape. But what if there are even more strange apes hiding in the United States? Is it possible? It's possible, as you'll see right now. Dear Sir, my name is James Meacham. I read the article that you wrote for True Magazine, began Meacham, in a 1960 letter to Bigfoot investigator Ivan T. Sanderson. I have been planning on going to California in the same area that your article was about. I was a little surprised to read about such a creature as an abominable snowman living so close to where I intended to visit. I've always liked to explore places that other people care little about. I would like to know all you can tell me about this creature, and if you can tell anything more than you did in the article. I am sure a man of your standing must have more information about this subject than was in those few pages. I will gladly pay the postage on the information you can send. I cannot offer more because I am not working at the present. I have met a few strange things in my life. As I am still young, there are many more that I will probably see. I would like to know if you can tell me anything about a creature that looks like a small ape or a large monkey that has hair the color of fur or reddish-orange color. I saw such a creature when I was 15. A friend was with me, but he did not see it. Whatever it was did not have a tail like a monkey, but it did swing like one by its arms. The story continues. This may sound like something that I thought I saw, but really didn't, which I would believe except for a few details. I had a .22 caliber semi-automatic with me. I watched this thing for about 5 minutes, so I have to believe it. I put 14 .22 long rifle shells into whatever it was. From where I was standing, I couldn't have missed. We found one bullet in the tree trunk, so 13 of them hit it. The part that sounds more impossible is that whatever it was did not even move while 13 bullets went into it. If I had missed, all 14 bullets would have gone into the tree trunk. I have told many people about this, but nobody believes it. We found a few hairs where I had shot, but nothing else except the bullet. There was not a trace of blood. My partner thinks it was a squirrel, but no squirrel grows that big. If it had been one, 2 of those bullets would have stopped it dead. Whatever it was did not even move until I headed for the P-94 tree. It traveled through those trees like an express train. I could hear the leaves rattle but could not see it. I searched for it for a long time after that but never saw it again. No one in that area knows anything about it or has ever seen it. It had a cry that was enough to drive a person crazy. That was almost 3 years ago, and I still wake up in my sleep sometimes when that sound comes back to me. If you can give me any advice as to what it could have been, I would greatly appreciate it. If I had not shot it myself, I would not believe it, not being able to find any blood. I know you must receive a lot of letters about this sort of thing, but all I want to know is what animal in a marsh near Jackson, Tennessee can hold 13 long rifle shells without even moving till you start to come after it. That is what started me looking for things most people think cannot possibly exist. Yours truly, James M. Meacham. All we can say for sure is that these creatures were neither a Bigfoot nor a skunk ape. A third unknown ape in the United States? Maybe. How about a fourth? We're still focusing on Sanderson. One strange story came from a woman who preferred anonymity and who Sanderson only referred to as Mrs. VK. Her off-the-record account is, however, in no way tainted by the lack of a name. She wrote to Sanderson in 1959, I am a housewife, but I majored in biology, attended our state university, and have an M.A. in plain zoology. My husband is an experimental chemist, and my eldest son is a technician in the Air Force. I come from Mississippi, but we've resided here in Kentucky for 10 years now. I wonder if you've ever heard of the little red men of the Delta. Nobody thought anything much of them where I was raised, except that one had better be careful of shooting one because it might be murder. Or so the sheriff might think if anything came off it. But I was surprised to find the folks hereabout know it too, though they took some years to talk about it to me. My husband is a New Englander, and these folks don't talk much. They, the little red men of the Delta, are said to be about the size of a 10-year-old kid and able to climb like monkeys and to live back from the bayous. They talk a lot but keep out of gunshot range and mostly go into the water. They are people, and the muskrat trappers say they often wear scraps of discarded linens, old jeans and such. A reddish creature not unlike that reported to Ivan Sanderson by Mrs. V.K. was seen a couple of years later by a man named David Clare. His encounter, however, occurred in the Detroit, Michigan suburb of Warren. It was early one summer's morning when Clare and his brother, encountered something monstrous in a large, uncultivated field covered in thick overgrowth. Clare continued that he and his brother had heard something smashing its way through the pigweed while making guttural muttering sounds. Suddenly it manifested almost out of nowhere. The bizarre creature that suddenly appeared before us had thrust his large head forward on his thick-set furry body, and we could clearly see the surprise and amazement on his face. He looked like a cross between a baboon and a gorilla, with grayish-black skin on his face and reddish-tan fur on his whole body. He gazed at us incredulously with his huge reddish-amber eyes. He seemed to be about 4.5 to 5 feet tall and stood on 2 legs. He had long, burly arms, and the skin on his palms was the same grayish-black, Claire added. After about 15 to 20 seconds of staring at us, the creature quickly turned around and bolted back into the thicket. It scrambled away very quickly. This was the type of situation that was difficult to make any sense of. The emotional shock left me feeling numb, and I found myself wanting to just put the whole episode out of my mind. I suspect that my brother felt the same way, because neither of us mentioned it again for quite some time. In his 2010 book, The Cryptid-Terrestrials, Mac Tunney's said, I have a reliable first-hand report of little people at large in the American Northwest. My source encountered a small congregation of these beings in a wooded area. Human-like in all essential respects, the beings were nevertheless small, like normal people in miniature. Tunney's source told him that the little people who appeared Asian predated all North American societies and cultures and had their own unique language. At times, Mac added, they pass among us as children and lead almost hobo-like existence. Not only that, in his articles, Tunney said that the faces of at least a few of the little people were somewhat ape-like. Intriguing. There are, however, even more kinds of unknown ape men in the United States that parallel the likes of Bigfoot. One of these is the tongue-tying Geolud mosiseg. It is a diminutive, goblin-like creature that is covered in black hair and prefers to live in caves in which lurks and feeds in deep woods, surrounded by dense marshland. Rather like the fairies of Middle Ages era Europe, the Geolud mosiseg enjoy playing pranks on people, pranks that sometimes turn malevolent if the creatures feel they have been slighted or disrespected. And like the elementals of fairy lore, the Geolud mosiseg have an obsession with braiding the manes of horses. Rather notably, this tradition extends all the way to Russia, where the Almasty is said to do exactly likewise. Then there are the Memegwesi, primitive ape-like humans that are a major part of the lore of the Ojibwe, Cree, Innu, Metis, Algonquin, and Menominee Indians. They are hairy things, around 4 feet tall at adulthood, and according to legend have had a good relationship with the Indians for many centuries. Like a number of unknown ape men, they have particularly liking of tobacco. They are significantly developed, too, having a language and also the ability to construct sturdy canoes in which they hunt for fish. Of potential, although admittedly not proven, connection to the stories of the Memegwesi and the Geolud mosiseg is the strange 1635 story of an Arctic explorer, Captain Luke Fox. In his journal for that year, Captain Fox wrote of an extraordinary discovery of a huge number of small coffins in the region of Baffin Island, Canada. Fox recorded that after speaking with the locals about the strange find, the news from the land was that this island was a sepulchre. For that the savages had laid their dead, I cannot say interred, for it is all stone, as they cannot dig therein, but laid the corpses upon the stones, and weld them about with the same, confining them also by laying the sides of old sleds above, which has been artificially made. The boards are some 9 or 10 feet long, 4 inches thick. In what manner the tree they have been made out of was cloven or sawn. It was so smooth as we cannot discern. The burials had been so old. And as in other places of these countries, they bury all their utensils, as bows, arrows, strings, darts, lances, and other implements carved in bone, demonstrating a potential connection to the Memaguesi and the Geolud egg. Captain Fox said, the longest corpse was not above 4 feet long, with their heads laid to the west. Their corpses were wrapped in deer skins. They seemed to be people of small stature, and, guess what, we're still not over. Here's another case, one that focuses on even another mysterious ape in the United States. In March 1946, Hoosier Folklore magazine told its readers of a strange story coming out of southern Illinois. Another type of story that is of much more concern to us in southern Illinois nowadays is the strange beast legend. Every few years, some community reports the presence of a mysterious beast over the local creek bottom. Although it is difficult to determine just where a story of this sort has its beginning, this one seems to have originated in the Gum Creek bottom near Mount Vernon. During the summer of 1941, a preacher was hunting squirrels in the woods along the creek when a large animal that looked something like a baboon jumped out of a tree near him. The preacher struck at the beast with his gun barrel when it walked toward him in an upright position. He finally frightened it away by firing a couple of shots into the air. Later, the beast began to alarm rural people by uttering terrorizing screams, mostly at night in the wooded bottomlands along the creeks. School children in the rural districts sometimes heard it too, and hunters saw its tracks. By early spring of 1942, the animal had local people aroused to a fighting pitch. Around that time, a farmer near Bonnie reported that the beast had killed his dog. A call went out for volunteers to join a mass hunt to round up the animal. The beast must have got news of the big hunt, for reports started coming in of its appearance in other mysterious beast over in the local creek bottom. A man driving near the Big Muddy River in Jackson County one night saw the beast bound across the road. Some hunters saw evidence of its presence away over in Okaw. Its rapid changing from place to place must have been aided considerably by its ability to jump, for by this time reports had it jumping along at from 20 to 40 feet per leap. It is impossible to say how many hunters and parties of hunters, armed with everything from shotguns to ropes and nets, went out looking for the strange beast in the various creek bottoms where it had been seen, or its tracks had been seen, or its piercing screams had been heard. Those taking nets and ropes were intent on bringing the creature back alive. Usually the strange beast can't be found, and interest in it dies as mysteriously as it arose in the beginning. About 25 years ago, a coon hunter from Hecker one night heard a strange beast screaming up ahead on Prairie Du Long Creek. Hunters chased this phantom from time to time all one winter. Their dogs would get the trail, then lose it, and they would hear it screaming down the creek in the opposite direction. It was that kind of creature. You'd hear it up creek, but when you set out in that direction, you hear it a mile down creek. Whatever all these apes in the United States, the fact is that they don't seem to be Bigfoot or the skunk ape. Very interesting. Some fascinating stuff. Could there be more than one type of Sasquatch in the United States? Shorter ones? It's not impossible. They have been reported. Finally, how Nessie and the Yeti birthed a global cryptid chasing industry. From the mists of Loch Ness to the wilds of Australia, fantastical beasts are spawning a lucrative and controversial form of tourism. They supposedly lurk in remote lakes, hide in dense forests, and roam snowy mountains. Yet despite being refuted by science, cryptids, fantastical beasts that probably don't exist, have awed and terrified humans for centuries. Sorry about that, folks. I'll get back to this in a second, hopefully. Alright, I signed up. Yes, okay. Get out of the way, please. Thank you. West Africa has the swamp-dwelling creature Ninkinanka. Japan, the monstrous Akoramui octopus. And Ireland, the carnivorous Dobbar Chew dog otter hybrid. But the mythical beings that seem to intrigue travelers most remain Scotland's Loch Ness Monster, the Himalayan Yeti, Australia's Yowie, and North America's Bigfoot. The last, the Chewbacca-like man-ape, helps generate over $140 million annually for the U.S. economy, according to the International Cryptozoology Museum in Portland, Maine. These cryptids have inspired festivals, movies, podcasts, and a niche field of study called cryptozoology, the search for magical creatures. They are the focus of boat cruises and wilderness excursions and lend their names to bars, hotels, restaurants, and even an airline. Just before the COVID-19 pandemic emerged, one Scottish company spent nearly $3 million on a new visitor center linked to the legendary serpent of Loch Ness. Whether people believe in cryptids or not, cryptotourism offers travelers the opportunity to explore under-the-radar destinations from a unique perspective. Here's how communities from Europe to Australia and Nepal are leaning into their mystical appeal to help their tourism industries recover from the pandemic. A modern legend emerges. The world's best-known cryptid is probably Nessie, the massive marine creature rumored to haunt the 800-foot deep waters of Loch Ness. Since its first alleged sighting some 1,400 years ago, the Loch Ness Monster has stirred perpetual ripples of controversy. This is the famous Sturgeon's photo. This 1934 photo of the Loch Ness Monster drew worldwide interest to Scotland. Despite the image being exposed as a hoax in 1994, hundreds of travelers visit the loch each year in hopes of spotting the alleged beast. To date, more than 1,000 people have claimed to have seen Nessie. Irish missionary St. Columba first wrote about the mythical beast in 565 AD. Allegedly, Nessie injured a swimmer and was poised to harm another when Columba intervened and berated the beast until it retreated into the lake's gloomy waters. Nessie spottings occurred from time to time over the following centuries, further feeding the myth. In 1934, this local legend went viral when an English doctor captured a photograph of what he claimed was Nessie, his long neck and bulbous head seemingly protruding from the lake. The image triggered a string of events that turned Loch Ness from a little-known location into one of Europe's most famous lakes. Monster tours of Loch Ness began soon after, says Gary Campbell, who runs the official Loch Ness Monster Sightings website, on which he's logged 1,143 encounters in 26 years. By 2019, Nessie tourism was a $47 million industry. The pandemic hasn't diminished Nessie's allure. In the first 8 months of 2022, 149,000 visitors took lake tours with Loch Ness by Jacobite, according to Frida Newton, the company's managing director. Everyone wants to believe in Nessie. We see it every day on the faces of visitors, she says. There is palpable excitement when people board our boats that maybe, just maybe, they'll get a glimpse of our most elusive friend. Gordon Menzies, who runs Castle Cruises Loch Ness, estimates more than 70% of his customers visit because of Nessie. He has spent a lifetime pondering this legend. I think it highly unlikely that a prehistoric creature still exists in here, Menzies says, but given the dark, peaty waters of the loch, I see no reason to consider it as impossible or something which we have not identified to exist. Lore versus science. Though Nessie has become somewhat kitschy, Australia's most prominent cryptid, the Yowie, is embedded deep in the lore of one of the world's oldest communities, the Australian Aboriginals. This drawing depicts the Yowie, an ape-like creature from Aboriginal folklore said to inhabit the remote reaches of the Australian outback. After the British colonized the country in the late 1700s, the Aboriginals delivered them an eerie warning. The verdant forests they stole camouflaged hairy, 10-foot-tall, 800-pound bipedal monsters. Yowies are respected but also avoided by our Aboriginal people because they can be dangerous, says Tony Healy, co-author of several books on Australian cryptids. The Aboriginal elders I spoke to see Yowies as something like a guardian spirit of the landscape. The earliest rumored Yowie sighting was in the 1830s, when a European man fired his musket at one of these beasts on Kangaroo Island, off the coast of South Australia. There have been hundreds of supposed encounters since, according to Australian cryptozoologist Gary Opit, who has researched for the Yowie for 50 years. They were concentrated on the Great Divide, a 2,300-mile-long series of mountain ranges and plateaus that runs north from Victoria through New South Wales and Queensland. An environmental scientist, Opit leads Yowie tours into this wilderness. About 90% of participants are foreign tourists keen on exploring the isolated locations of reported Yowie sightings, like Mount Warning in northern NSW, New South Wales, and nearby Springbrook Mountain. Despite being discussed for thousands of years, Yowies only became a tourist draw in the past decade, he says. Some 5,000 miles away in Kathmandu, Nepal, cryptotourism is better established, reaching back to the 1950s. It centers on the Yeti. Up to 6 feet tall and similar in appearance to the Yowie and Bigfoot, this legendary creature allegedly prowls the snowy peaks of the Himalayas and is a prominent figure in the folklore of Nepal, Bhutan, India, and Tibet. Several Southeast Asian countries use the Yeti, similar to North America's Bigfoot, in their destination branding, as in this 2014 Bhutanese stamp. Its tail is 6,000 years old, says Ram Kumar Pandey, a Nepali geographer and author of multiple books about the Yeti. But the furry beast was a regional fairy tale until British explorer Eric Shipton claimed to have photographed a 13-inch long footprint, hominoid in appearance, in the snow of Nepal's Menlung Glacier west of Mount Everest, Pandey says. This image haunted newspapers and televisions worldwide. Explorers soon inundated the Himalayas, competing to detect the cryptid. The deluge of foreign visitors prompted the Nepal government to issue strict regulations on Yeti hunts, which required those involved to only photograph and not harm any creatures they encountered. Over the following decades, the Yeti became a powerful tourism brand in Nepal. This beast's foot forms the logo of the domestic carrier Yeti Airlines, while hotels, restaurants, cafes, and tour companies profit off its name. In early 2020, the Nepal government made the cryptid a centerpiece of its tourism campaign, placing dozens of Yeti statues at key attractions. As an intrinsic part of Nepal's folklore, the Yeti is a worthwhile tourist draw, Pandey says. Travelers intrigued by the beast should travel to Mahalangur Himal. This wild Himalayan region, home to several of the world's tallest peaks, including Mount Everest, Lhotse, Cho Oyu, and Makalu, is the Yeti's key habitat and the location of most of its sightings, he says. Visitors to this region can learn dozens of Yeti legends from its Sherpa communities. Ancient scrolls kept in Himalayan monasteries reveal the tale of how the Yeti was born to a Tibetan mother and a Mahalangur giant ape. Pandey explains. Mahalangur Himal, best known for some of the world's tallest peaks, is said to be a popular site for spotting the Yeti. Other Nepalese are more skeptical. Veteran Kathmandu tour guide Sushil Nepal says even as a child he viewed Yetis as a sham. Now, when his customers ask about the monster, he tells them it's widely considered a myth. Nepal says he dislikes cryptotourism, which steals focus from the country's remarkable architecture and ancient traditions. I don't think the Yeti is a valuable tool to promote Nepal tourism, he says. We have a lot of tangible and intangible cultural heritage. Nepal should focus on its rich natural diversity. Many researchers are similarly dubious about this cryptid. In 2017, DNA analysis of alleged Yeti teeth, hair, and fur published by Proceedings of the Royal Society B found this mythical beast may have been inspired by real animals, the Himalayan black and brown bears. Academics have also offered scientific explanations for Australian cryptids and the Loch Ness Monster, yet these legends persist. People have always been fascinated by things in nature which confuse us, which we just don't understand, Opit says. That's not going to change anytime soon. So, an absolutely fascinating article about cryptotourism. Does the Yeti still exist? Well, Peter Burns says no. Peter Burns says it's entirely possible that they may have all died out. Does Nessie still exist? We don't really know. I mean, people claim they still see it, or they still see more than one Nessie sometimes. But who knows? I mean, do these creatures still exist? The Yeti, perhaps not. The Loch Ness Monster, maybe it still does. I mean, who really knows? All we know is that cryptotourism is big business. By the way, I just wanted to give some news about the Ohio Bigfoot Conference, which is coming up on May 6, 2023. There's 4 speakers that have been announced so far. Renee Howland, who spoke earlier this year. David Becara of Expedition Bigfoot, the Sasquatch Museum in Cherry Log, Georgia. Cliff Barrickman returning and Adam Davis returning. The first wave of tickets are sold out. I was fortunate enough to get one, even though I didn't get it at the time that it was supposed to be purchased. A friend did a favor for me, so I appreciate that friend. But the second wave of tickets will go on sale January 3rd at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And ticket prices are pretty steep. It's $90. But if you want to go, yeah, I think you should go. I think people should definitely, if they've never been to the Ohio Bigfoot Conference, this could be their opportunity. If they've been before and enjoyed it at that time, then they should go again and enjoy it again. And I realize, yes, 3 of the speakers were speakers earlier this year and have been multiple time speakers at the conference. And that may turn some people off, and I get that. But all I can say is, if you're dissatisfied with speakers at an event, start your own event. Get your own speakers. But I mean, that's just for the people who complain about that. I'm not talking about everybody. I'm just talking about the people who complain about something like that. Personally, I don't have an issue with it myself. I don't have an issue with that. So, but there might be those who do. And like I say, I get it. You don't want to hear the same speakers over and over again. I get that. But sometimes they have a different presentation to give every year. I know I've seen Jeff Meldrum give several presentations, and each presentation is a little bit different. Like the one he gave earlier this year at the Ohio Bigfoot Conference, where he talked about citizen scientists. and the importance of citizen science. So that was actually different, if you ask me. It was one that I hadn't seen him give before. And I've seen Jeff Middleton give several presentations in person. I in person have seen him give several presentations, and they're always fascinating. And he always leaves you with something to think about. And that's going to do it for this week. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. You guys are the heart of the show. I always say that, but I always mean it. I'll continue to do this slice you guys want me to. And hey, until next week, y'all be good or be good at it. This is HBM's Crypto Corner.